Good evening. You're joining us on Business at 9 here on ET Now with all the big buzzing business news. But now this may look slick, what we're talking about. It may even sound legit and even given you that little adrenaline rush of trading on yes or no predictions. But one should not be fooled, and that's exactly what SEBI is saying. SEBI isn't quite buying this, and neither should you. In what turns out to be a strongly worded public caution, SEBI has sounded that alarm bell on so-called opinion trading platforms. There are flashy websites where you can stake money on whether it will rain tomorrow, if a stock is going to rise, or even who is going to win the next election. And they mimic legitimate investment services. But here's the catch. They are not regulated. They are not registered stock exchanges. And the trades that you make, they're not even classified as securities. What does that really mean? It means that you have zero legal protection if things go south. And SEBI is saying this is not financial innovation. It is actually regulatory evasion. So how do you tell the difference between a real investment opportunity and a gamified financial gamble that is in a disguise? Let's bring in our panel on this. And we'll shortly be joined by Jane Gupta, the former executive director at SEBI and currently managing director at Stakeholders Empowerment Services, someone who's going to give us a ringside seat in how regulation evolves. Anuj Agarwal is also going to be with us. And of course, I'm going to introduce Kavita Menon right away. And of course, she is the SEBI registered investment advisor. She's going to explain to us what investors should watch out for and why this is just not another fintech tool. So you tell us, in your opinion, Kavita, as far as the basics are concerned, when SEBI says these platforms are not regulated and the instruments are not even securities, how big a red flag is that? For the average investor, how big a red flag is it?
Hi, Vikram. Thank you for having me here. So, a lot of what happens on these apps, like you rightly said, you get they're binary options. You just have a yes and a no. You can bet on the weather. You can bet on the outcome of a cricket match. So you can bet on anything. Now, typically, what SEBI is really worried about is the betting that is happening on stock prices. And most of these apps that are betting on stock prices are using terminology very similar to regular stock trading applications. They're using words like trading, stop loss, profit booking, and so on and so forth. And also, they're talking about actual, setting trades or between the options which either of the parties are using. So there is an active trading that is happening, and which is why the whole adrenal rush, the dopamine kick of trading and gambling is there in these apps. That's what is worrying SEBI, and there is no way for the regulator to keep tab on what is happening here because none of this is happening through a exchange, right? The options or the trading or the investment advice is happening via channels that the regulator has no control on. There are telegraph channels which are giving advice on um, what opinions you should be trading on. There are so it's basically really out of the regulator's ambit, and when that happens there is no protection for the investors. This is pure gambling as far as this regulator is concerned. So it's very rightly said he has warned investors to to stay away from these
Yes, be
applications.
wary. Yes. So when you talk about them, what is that legality that they stand on, if at all, these opinion trading platforms? Like you're pointing out, they often look like fantasy stock markets. They are gamified, they're slick, and often they use tech lingo as well. So are they actually operating in a legal gray zone, or is this outright illegality?
So it's a gray zone, definitely a gray zone. Because India, explicitly, we have laws that completely ban any kind of gambling. So what is allowed in India, and also that is also typical to a certain number of states which allow this. What is allowed in India is you can have any kind of games that require skill. So skill-based gaming is allowed. Now, this is where this kind of opinion trading works. They kind of function in this area. They are saying that in order to have these opinions, even if though it is just a plain yes or no, to have these opinion, one needs a certain amount of skill, information, and hence this is skill based. However, the regulator has another view, and there are other. I think there is also a case going on currently where in the Supreme Court where they are evaluating whether opinion trading is gambling or is it skill-based gaming? So it is certainly a very gray area. But let me tell you this: overseas, internationally, this is a very large segment, and it is pretty much formalized. Also, there are regulations which control these gaming apps, and my opinion is the need of the hour is to have a regulation for them versus just banning them or trying to, because the moment you say ban, then there'll be other ways in which this will happen. It just goes underground. That's all. But I think if one has to really control what's happening on these applications, there needs to be some type of a regulation or
How
some type of
difficult
law
is
that
that?
will.
How difficult is that? Let me ask Mr. Gupta. He's joining us, former executive director at SEBI and currently, of course, managing director at Stakeholders Empowerment. Mr. Gupta, Kavita is saying that we need some regulation because this kind of opinion, spaces that are luring in investors, those are in gray areas and they're not completely illegal. But rather than banning them, that might create more problems than reduce them. How do you even regulate?
See, the issue is very simple. There are regulations that investment advisor, research analysts must be regulated. Now there are, as Kavita said, there are many people who are doing this business without having been registered. What could happen, always happen, then there will be always be a fine line, this comma is missing, full stop is missing, so I am not a registered investment advisor, but I can do this job, that job. My issue is always that a regulator can go only to certain extent. It cannot get into mind of each and every investor and hold hand and pull hand. So don't sign this document, don't do that, don't do this thing. The issue that I say that we have a habit, you can say it's a cultural issue, whatever issue it may happen, but we have a habit of falling for short-term gains or something, getting into trap of promise. And I will give you a very simple example. All throughout the country, there is a thing that whenever you hire maid servant or servant, you check the antecedent. Now, how many of us do it? Because what happens, somebody comes and offers his or her services at a price which is cheaper than that. Okay, let us don't bother. Only when the problem happens, then we run here and there. Ki ye ho gaya.
Right.
I always say that greed is married to grief, and there is no divorce provision. So if you are greedy, sooner or later you are going to come to the grief. The issue is very simple. We are extremely careless when it comes to investment.
Right.
We believe somebody whom I don't know. I don't know people who are giving me opinion on YouTube, but they say, इसको खरीदो तो दुगना हो जाएगा, 20% प्रॉफिट हो जाएगा, ये हो जाएगा. अरे भाई, अगर 20% प्रॉफिट हो रहा है तो तुम क्यों नहीं अपने घर में कर लेते, मुझे क्यों दे रहे हो प्रॉफिट?
Right.
So that question we never ask.
Yes. Yes, we don't. And why don't we is the question that SEBI is asking us. Anuj Agarwal is also joining us. He's a noted cyber expert. He's the chairman of the Center for Research on Cybercrime and Cyber Law. Great to have you with us, sir. You tell us, Mr. Agarwal, these platforms, what are they really up to behind the scenes? What's your understanding of them?
See, there are two kind of problems. One, the kind of platforms and the social media groups on Telegram and other places, they are offering free investment advice, and where they have a lot of people connected and the group boasting that they have made 100 rupees investment and within month or two, they have got a 50%, 100% return, etc., etc. Within these groups and these kind of people are also enticing people by saying that so and so IPO is coming, but we will get you that confirm allotment even before the IPO opens. So when the IPO opens, you will be holding that share, and whenever it is listed, you will have 50% and 100% kind of a gain. Now, this is a complete and pure scam.
Yes.
As per SEBI, there are investment advisors and they have to be registered because they have some process by which they register. Anybody who is unregistered and providing advice on Twitter or Telegram is completely scam. probably as Mr. Gupta also said, that we want free advice, while an investment advisor is supposed to get some fees. So for the free advice and that immediate 50% gain, 100% gain,
Yes.
people get into this, and this is a complete scam.
Yes, but
And
that's
this
what happens when
is,
Mr. Agarwal.
This scam is thousands of crores
Yes.
actually.
Yes.
Every month I am getting hundreds of complaints, and the amount involved is 80 lakhs, 1 crore, and sometimes even more than that.
So who are these people who are running them, and why are they so difficult to pin down?
See, these are the typical fraudsters who are involved into cybercrime. And this is one of their methods by which they entice the people into their game. And they pose themselves as influencers, as investment advisors. And sometimes they even involve models from foreign countries just to give a little credibility. And they use names which are very well known, Oswal and all that. So people get enticed and they start believing that they are dealing with the genuine experts, they are dealing with the genuine firms. And that is where these people are able to take the money. And once they get the money, they siphon it off through multiple layers of the bank accounts. And finally, that money is withdrawn through ATMs or the cash counters, and they vanish.
Yes. So there is a modus operandi, clearly. Kavita, someone who interacts with investors on a daily basis, you think there is genuine confusion in the mind of users who see these as these new age financial services, because they do a good job of presenting themselves and they come across like influencers, but they're actually creating cyber crime, like Mr. Agarwal is pointing out. Kavita, I'm not sure if you've unmuted yourself.
Are you able to hear me now?
Now I can.
Okay. So, of course, influencers are there, and the advertisements are so enticing. The kind of returns, they only talk about the positive returns in these ads.
Yeah.
However, the fact is that a lot of people in opinion trading apps do lose money. The majority of them lose money. They don't actually make those fantastic returns that those ads are showing. And the influencers are responsible for pushing people towards these apps. So the concern is, and there are some genuine apps. I'm not going to say that all of them are fraudulent. There are some genuine players also who are into opinion trading. But again, there is no regulation, right? So they can speak about returns in any fashion that they choose to. And what happens when that? So look at me. I'm a registered investment advisor. I cannot talk about the returns I'm offering to my clients because regulation prohibits me from advertising.
Right.
But here on the other side, you have a whole market which is talking about huge returns, big gains, quick money, and the enticing ads. And then there are influencers. So very clearly, young people are getting attracted to these kind of applications. So very normal thing, right? The market is, and the people who are there on these apps are youngsters.
Right.
From what I have heard, there are 14, 15-year-olds who are trading on these apps and losing money.
Right. Right. So, I mean, they get sucked into this. But Mr. Gupta, if a user is trading on these platforms and the outcome is tied to an actual listed security or even a corporate event, do you think that crosses into dangerous territory legally?
No, I couldn't get your question correctly.
I'm just saying that because of the lure of these platforms, if a user is going to get into trading on these platforms and the outcome of whatever trade is conducted is tied to an actual listed security, does that for that user also cross into dangerous territory when you talk about legality of it, etc., those kind of trades, those kind of transactions?
See, actually, if you go by the regulation, the listed shares cannot be traded on any other platform other than the stock exchanges. The moment you are doing it, it is, we call it is a dark web or something, whatever you may call. It is illegal. It is not possible. The only listed share that you can carry is not thing I can transfer it to my wife or something. It is a transfer which is in a one-to-one basis, but it can't be traded in a platform that where I give a quotation and somebody does it.
Yes.
The basic problem that is always there. If Kavita is giving me advice and she said that, okay, I will take X% of your profit or X% of portfolio, then someone comes and say, oh, I am giving you free advice. So मैं बोलता हूँ मेरा 1% तो return बढ़ गया.
Right.
I am going to get 1% more return than what Kavita is advising because I am not paying Kavita fees.
Right.
I don't realize that tomorrow मेरा 50% चला भी जाएगा.
Correct.
That I don't realize.
Right.
The problem, I again say that you cannot get into the mind of the investor, you cannot hold his hand, and you cannot control his greed. The problem, again, I always give an example that when you look at the behavior of everybody sitting in this, when we go to vegetable market, so we pick each piece of bhendi, measuring length and measuring everything, and then buy 100 gram or 200 gram of bhendi.
Yes.
But when we buy investment, which is long term,
Yes.
Anuj comes and Kavita comes and says, buy this, it will become double, I buy.
Yes.
So that is the mindset here. जो 100 रुपए की चीज 20 रुपए की चीज उस पे हम आधा घंटा लगाते हैं.
Yes.
और जो 1 लाख रुपए की चीज उस पे हम 2 मिनट में डिसीजन लेके खत्म
That's
कर
true.
देते हैं.
That's true. So how the human mind functions is still a conundrum, and we have a lot to introspect on that count. But these platforms, Mr. Agarwal, they often ask for wallet top-ups, they ask for KYC, and even links to UPI. So is user data and money really safe in these systems as well? Are we compromising that kind of safety too? Besides, of course, the downside of doing this kind of opinion trading where, money is lost.
These platforms being operated by youngsters who are well trained, and they entice people and they look very genuine, and they will do sort of KYC as you rightly said, and they will say, and in fact, a couple of interactions I had with people, and they said, no, they have the PAN number, they have the GST number, so it is the responsibility of the government now, since they are registered, to take care. So people are not at all careful. Nobody is probably listening to SEBI, or SEBI is doing all that publicity in a very narrow manner, believing that everybody understands them.
Right.
It is their responsibility to go to the rural, to the semi-rural, and to multiple languages, and in a very simple manner.
Yes.
Right. And it is also their responsibility to do a complete preemptive surveillance. They just cannot say if somebody will complain and we will take care and this is not investment and all that. People are believing that they are doing investment, whether it was a fake or fraud or whatever.
Yes.
But for them, it is investment.
Yes.
So I think it is very, very important for the regulators. SEBI has a national mandate, national footprint. So they must do a very proactive surveillance on all these platforms. The technology is available and must take a very strict action as per law.
So are we failing on that count, Kavita, you think? Because this need to educate a new age investor who believes that if it is online and exciting, it must be the future of finance. It's easy to believe that. So when you talk about investor protection campaigns by SEBI, do you think we are failing to evolve to address these guys who are kind of getting drawn in?
Ram, it's hard. I mean, I'm an advisor and I can tell you, I can speak for SEBI that it is going to be really hard to keep track of all these new kind of businesses that are cropping up on a daily basis. It's hard and it is not undoable. But remember one more thing, when it comes to the digital world, just think of this. You're not necessarily talking to, you're not talking about players in India. I could be doing, I could be having a gaming app that is domiciled in the US or overseas or in some, I don't know which country. It could be anywhere in the world. So I think we need to formulate regulation that covers a lot more than what we think is happening right now. It's no longer just a domestic issue. Because if you try to curb something in the domestic market, then you will have opportunities coming from overseas, right? In the digital world, that is the biggest problem. I think it will be a headache for any regulator. So I think a framework, a legal framework, is what has to be made so that there are some checks and balances, so that people just don't go and bet their life savings into applications. There will be legit applications which will have proper processes, safety checks and balances. They will have KYC. They will have the clients, so like I said, just in regular trading, there will be margins. So those kind of things, those protective frameworks will be there. But for that, we need some very dramatically different regulation.
Yes.
I don't think SEBI is the right entity to regulate what's happening in the gaming space.
Then who will do it? Mr. Gupta, you have any suggestions? SEBI has issued this caution, but I'm wondering, and Kavita is as well, can a mere public notice keep pace with the speed and the virality of these tech-driven platforms, or we need a digital surveillance upgrade, better regulations?
Kavita says, SEBI is not God, omnipresent, omniscient, everything. They cannot do everything. The issue, I always say that no fraud can take place if the bankers are very, very cautious. Now, say for example, I start an app. Now you are paying money to me through a banking channel, whatever maybe it is, whether UPI or direct thing. Now, if I had gone and opened account with a bank, the bank will ask me, what is your business? Now, if I say, oh, I run an investment platform, the bank should certainly feel that if investment platform is being run, then it must be registered with SEBI. That is one very big issue. All collective investment schemes have been successful because banks have not been putting proper due diligence. The second part of the issue is, suppose I catch something. I take him to Securities Appellate Tribunal or High Court or something.
Yes.
There the problem is that, oh, you Kavita has been caught or Jain Gupta has been caught and SEBI is litigating. So SEBI is seen as a litigant and Kavita or Jain Gupta is seen as a poor individual after whom the SEBI is there.
Yes.
The problem is this, courts have to look into SEBI not as SEBI regulator but face of millions of investors who have been looted.
Yes.
The day this happened, because what happened, SEBI cannot afford all the big lawyers who charge 2 crore rupees fees because every other day fraud happened.
That's
so if
true.
SEBI starts paying 2 crore to its lawyers, then there will be nothing left in the SEBI to pay salary. So the issue is the court has to realize, and I have always been saying that the Constitution says equality before the law.
Yes.
Now, it is not there because the equality is of senior counsels who have everything that is possible in the courts.
Yes.
The junior counsel whom poor people hire
Yes.
have really no voice.
So,
Senior
I mean,
counsel can tear the papers in the Supreme Court.
Yes.
Still the court says, have a glass of water.
yes, true. So, I mean, this is a story we've seen before. Technology racing ahead, regulations scrambling to catch up, and somewhere in between, investors are losing a lot of money. But this time, SEBI is not waiting for a disaster to sound the alarm. These so-called opinion trading platforms, they may be dressed up in fintech garb, but really under the hood, they raise serious concerns from legality to investor protection to cyber security. So, of course, as we keep watching the markets and we see how investors behave, we are going to look at opinion trading with that much concern, and we'll see exactly what SEBI does next in terms of being able to protect investor interest. Mr. J.N. Gupta, Anuj Agarwal and Kavita Menon, thank you very much for joining us for focusing on this much-needed investor first lens. We'll have to wrap up this edition of Business at 9, but of course we'll keep our focus on all the big developing news stories, and we'll be back again at 9 p.m. tomorrow night as well. We hope you can keep your date with us. But tomorrow, of course, being a markets holiday, we probably will not be in the studios, but we'll keep you on top of all the news. I'm Vikram Oza from me and the team. Thank you very much and good night.